Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Highruler, and today we have our very first developer update for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now, if you're like me and you couldn't get this page working, you gotta do a hard refresh in your browser, otherwise it does come up blank. Now, let's get the tech support stuff out of the way because that's not my job right now. My job is to read, dissect, and go through this, so let's get to it. So they say, hello people of Metropolis, it's been another busy but exciting week here at Rocksteady. We launched our first post-launch patch, and we're also preparing for the release of Season 1. But more importantly, the team is working incredibly hard on bug fixing and improvements. You've all clearly been busy too. We love seeing the endgame busting builds you put together, the insane displays of skill as you master the squad's traversal, and the hype moments as you take on the Justice League and Brainiac. For this update, I wanted to address the reception to the patch as well as our thoughts on the effect it's had, what we're currently working on, what we're looking at to work on in the coming weeks. So they start with the top priority issues. For upcoming patches, we are looking to address login and server issues. And while we might not be able to fix all of those issues right away, I want to ensure everyone this is the top priority for us. We hear and feel your frustration, and we can only agree it's unacceptable for the players who are affected by this. We need to do better, and we're working hard to fix these issues. It is, however, not an easy nut to crack because it's not one single issue. It's several smaller issues that are affecting some players in different ways. We can only ask you to remain patient and keep giving more information through customer support to help us address these issues. Now, understandably so, when it comes to networking and server stuff, it really is seemingly the bane of modern game developers when it comes to putting this stuff together. Now, understandably so, they are working on it. It is top priority. It's always the optics situation, right? You have players who bought the game, can't play it, and then for the players who are playing it, you like nerf their builds, right? Well, understandably, there are two different teams working on these things. It does give a bad optics situation to the game, and that's what they're going to talk about. So let's go. Why did we release an endgame bug and balancing patch first? Balancing changes can be done by our design teams with little to no need for code support. Login issues and server issues are sadly not something a designer can fix. However, we don't want to delay changes that can be implemented quickly and will improve parts of the game. So while we understand that you might wonder and be frustrated around priorities, keep in mind that we have different teams working on different issues in parallel. Rest assured, our engineering and network code teams are dedicated and completely focused on fixing networking issues. At the end of the day, we don't want to delay changes that we can make and believe will improve parts of the game. Now, that's a totally understandable point right there, right? Different teams, different priorities, different things that they're working on. I feel like if they released that with the patch and said, hey, this is what's happening, here's what we're doing, I think the patch would have gone over a lot better. Part of a live service game isn't just the DLC and releasing things and the monetization. It's community management, and not just updating the community with things that are happening, but it's actually managing and engaging in dialogue with the community. And up until this point right here, I would actually think Rocksteady was kind of failing at it, because a lot of the time it's about the optics of what you do. It's not about actually what you do. It's the optics of what you do and how do people perceive that and how do you engage with that. And right there was a great kind of point, and that would have gone well over with the patch, but it took a lot of feedback and a lot of negative feedback for Rocksteady to put that out. So while it is great that they did put that out, for future patches, they have to release the understanding part of it. And hey, we know this isn't great. Here's their philosophy behind it, and put that with the patch notes. People who know what they're doing and understand will get it, but it's for the people who kind of look at these patch notes at a surface level because maybe it's their first live service game, or maybe they just kind of want to see what's happening, and this is for them, right? Great, but they had to do this with the patch notes. Then they go on to say, patch and leaderboard update. On our latest patch, we addressed the game-breaking issue with the burn affliction, and we introduced a new leaderboard to immortalize all of you engaged with the mastery levels and quite literally broke the game. If you open the leaderboards in-game after the patch, you'll be able to change the filter and view Finite Crisis OG villains, which is what you all are, the original crowd, the Trailblazers, the OG villains. We also changed mastery level balancing based on feedback from you all to make enemy health increases less steep and mastery level 46+. The intent with these changes was to allow for more build permutations, and we're really excited to see all of you now chase and explore new builds. We're even seeing some interesting freeze builds emerge, which we think is pretty cool. One of the other changes we made in the patch was to both increase the damage that enemies deal at mastery level 46+ a bit, and to reduce the damage reduction on heat waves, molten skin, and the turtle shells from 100 to 90%. We've seen that this is met with somewhat mixed feelings given that the enemies at this level were pretty threatening already. However, our intention here is to keep both these items as very powerful damage reduction tools, but to ensure players still have to master traversal to steer clear of damage on the higher mastery levels. We also hope this will make players consider more ways of reducing enemy damage further when making endgame builds, both with the talents and with augments on gear. There are some pretty powerful combinations in there that might be obvious at first glance, but can create synergies. When we pair these changes with our decreasing rate at which enemies gain health throughout the mastery levels, our intent is that this will lead to a combat experience at higher mastery levels that is a bit more frantic and fast-paced, where mastery, traversal, combat mechanics, and your build become crucial if you want to keep pushing. Now, this is all great here. I get what they're trying to do. I understand that they don't want players to be stationary in their game. Leaderboards are already fucked. And that's just the case when it comes to the hacker situation going on. If you guys don't know, I'm going to pull up a picture here of Jon Snow from the Avengers days. He is a notorious hacker, and he's back at it again, as well as many others, but I'm just using this picture here from social media. The problem with leaderboards and without a good anti-cheat system is that when you have hackers, it invalidates everything that you're trying to do with this. So what do you do at this point? Do you make another leaderboard situation, or do you just ban the hackers? I would like to think that they're just going to ban the hackers, but maybe they have to make another leaderboard because maybe they can't remove those players off the leaderboard. I don't know, but there are hackers now playing the game. They are ruining the leaderboard and the competitive spirit of these leaderboards. And honestly, I hope Rocksteady takes some action here, because otherwise, what are you doing at this point, right? So, in the spirit of what are you doing, what's next? The highest priority within the code teams at the moment is to first and foremost address the issues some of our players are having around login and servers. While that is happening, we want to share what else is in the works already and what we got cooking for upcoming patches. Changes to Prometheum game loop. We're seeing an imbalance where players need to play too many Metropolis missions to get Prometheum for incursion missions, killing time, or the mayhem mission. Some players have found ways to alleviate this by hunting the Cargonauts that are spread around the city, which is great to see. However, the Metropolis missions remain a concern for us, so we hear you that this loop could be more interesting, and in particular that it doesn't feel like you're engaging with the open world as much as you would like. We want you to feel like you're exploring Metropolis and that there are reasons to engage with the open world beyond just traversing between missions. That's why we're planning on doing a pretty big and fundamental change to this loop. Raising Hell will reward 3,000 Prometheum for completing Tier 1, and each subsequent tier will reward an increasing amount of Prometheum. Essentially, Raising Hell will be the way to get Prometheum quickly, which is great. I like that. I like that they're trying to make people go back and engage with content already there, right? I think one of the things that these games do struggle with sometimes is making older content relevant and giving players reasons to go back. So I actually like this change by them. Then they go on to say, for those who are unfamiliar with this feature, Raising Hell unlocks in Chapter 6. It features our favorite Toy Man. Your nickname is starting to rub off on us, though. I confess I initially wrote Toy Boy, and it revolves around annoying the heck out of Brainiac Metropolis. There's a set number of objectives to complete that tie into both our combat mechanics and exploration, and once you complete it, you face off against one of Brainiac's hit squads. We're also planning on giving these hit squads a bump so they drop better loot rewards. We hope that this change will mean that you all get to explore and engage with Metropolis in new ways. Then, mutator balancing, boom, and affliction immunity. We've noted feedback from a lot of players that certain mutators are frustrating to play with, and they limit options available to you in combat. The culprits are boom and, to a lesser extent, affliction immunity. Boom is like the biggest annoyance right now for a lot of people, myself included. I first want to talk a little about the role of mutators in endgame overall before I address these specific ones. Mutators are supposed to act as playstyle changers, points in the mastery levels where you need to reevaluate your build, which is why they're mostly made to synergize with certain builds or afflictions. Having said that, we appreciate that boom might be restricting the way you play, especially when playing Harley and King Shark. We are therefore considering excluding suicide strikes and shield harvesting from triggering boom so that you can still use all your abilities, but will still have to consider your positioning carefully when taking on enemies with your other attacks. I think that's a fair compromise there. I definitely understand where they're coming from, but I think boom is just too restricting overall, and it really does negate the way a lot of players want to play the game, right? So while they do have their philosophy and their vision, I think sometimes you do have to kind of allow some outside influence in there, and it does seem like they are. We're also considering modifying affliction immunity so that the effect will be removed from enemies whenever they take damage rather than just on critical hits. That's great. I think a lot of people have been upset about that as well, so I think even that change would go a long way for the players. The hope with these changes is that high-level mastery combat will still require strategic play and positioning, but will open up the build and playstyle possibilities further. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these changes before they go live, so please let us know what you think. Both those changes are great. Go for them. Let them go. Don't listen to anybody that says otherwise. Just put them in the game. Lower tiered legendary items. Our intention with legendary gear was that it would be a viable part of the endgame builds, and in some cases even be cornerstone items in a build, and in other cases be complementary items to Notorious or Infamy set gear. We are seeing several powerful legendary items get a lot of mileage at higher mastery levels, which is fantastic. However, we also think there's room for some of the lesser used legendary items to find a home with more experimentation. Some of these lower tier legendary items are not really being used in endgame builds, as they simply don't seem to be able to keep up the raw stats that other legendary, notorious, and infamy set items have. But before we action anything, we would really love to hear if you just have discovered a legendary item that you think would be great in a build, but that you're just not using due to it falling behind in terms of damage output, or due to it being too situational or too hard to trigger and maintain. Let us know. Thank you for all the feedback you've been sending our way. We hear you and we see you. We're looking forward to sharing more details around the upcoming release of our first season soon. It's going to be a laugh. Honestly, great update here. I understand that obviously this may be not part of what their plan originally was for community engagement and community management, but this is great. They need to do more of this. And I think right here, there is so much information that they've presented that it's hard to frame this as anything but positive for the game. They need to keep doing more of this and keep giving players details and transparency. I said the other day that obviously when they say they haven't figured it out yet and they don't know how to figure out what's going on, that's a bad look, right? Obviously, you don't want to have such a complex issue that you can't reproduce it, because as I've heard, if you work in IT and tech, if you can't reproduce an issue, it's kind of like SOL at that point, right? But this right here, obviously reassuring players and giving updates and letting people know what you're thinking, allows players to feel invested in the direction of the game. And I think this has been a great update here. I love stuff like this. I love dissecting stuff like this. I love giving my thoughts and stuff like this. So for me, this was a great kind of update here, and I love the fact that they did it. But let me know in the comments below, what changes did you like in here? Did you like this kind of update? And let me know, are you excited to get back into Suicide Squad coming with Season 1 very soon? Or are you kind of just waiting to see what's going to happen at this point? Let me know, and I can't wait to do more Suicide Squad content for you guys soon with Season 1 right around the corner. As always, enjoy the rest of the day and the night. Take care yourselves. Later, guys.